welcome to the Progressive Queens, the show that talks about all things political from a female perspective. I'm joined by my panelist, Mickey. Wave hello, Mickey, to the camera.
Hi.
And she said hello too. Got a bonus there, guys. But we're gonna get right into it before we head to our main topic. I don't quite know where I want to start because there's so many things to talk about this week. So I guess I'll start with the ceasefire that Biden somehow is getting credit for. But I'm like, wasn't it Egypt that did most of the work, or what did
Exactly. His first reaction was Israel has the right to defend itself. In other words, he's on Israel's side, the aggressor's side. It wasn't until the progressives got on the House floor and really laid into this whole situation that he wavered a little and thought maybe they should have a ceasefire. Well, they had the ceasefire. Israel and Palestine signed it. Palestinians went to the Al-Aqsa Mosque to celebrate the ceasefire, and the Israelis went in and attacked them with stun grenades and rubber bullets and tear gas while they were in their mosque celebrating a ceasefire. Now you tell me who the aggressor is.
Yeah, it's so, there's so many complicated sides to it, but no one should be. I still can't even figure out why it is they're fighting. I'm like, okay, what are you all real? What are you really? It's like Israel doesn't want Palestine to exist unless I'm just
Exactly.
missing something. I'm like, okay, I'm missing. I feel like I'm missing something, but I'm not sure what it is I'm missing because I'm like, whoa, just recognize their right to exist. Stop bombing them. Stop kicking them out of their homes. Stop depleting their resources and leave them alone. Just let them
Exactly.
leave their own country. I don't understand it.
Israel wants all of the land for themselves, and they want to eliminate all the Arabs. They've as much said so. They've said it over the decades.
And somehow
They,
they keep getting away with it. I'm like, okay, what are you all talking about?
well, it doesn't help that the United States supports them with billions of dollars, with
Yeah,
our weapons, and with propaganda.
and propaganda is the worst. It's
Hmm.
bad enough you're giving them money, but now you're doing propaganda and you're totally painting. You're putting the Palestinians and Hamas in the same basket, and they're really not. There are two different sets of people. There's the Palestinians, and then there's Hamas. We all know that Hamas is sometimes terroristic in their actions. I'll say it that way. But oh boy, I don't want to.
It was Israel who created Hamas.
Yeah,
They
I
intentionally,
you said it better than I could. I was teetering. I'm like, bleh, bleh.
well, they did. They created it basically to fight the Palestinians. Well, guess what? They were Arabs and they sided with the Palestinians. So if Israel is whining about Hamas, look in the mirror. They have for years been blockading Gaza. They have been cutting off the supplies of water, electricity, food, medicine. They have actually studied how many calories a day an adult man, adult woman, a child need. And that's the bare minimum of food they're letting through. Think about that.
Yeah, and not only that, it's you know, thank goodness some media is now starting to at least talk about the violence in Palestine because it's not where it should be by any stretch of the means, but it's better than it was even when I was a teenager and these two countries were still fighting. Um, and so now you have people such as Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad, et cetera, saying, you know what, it's time to withhold this $785 million that Biden, or is it billion? Is it billion or million?
I think it's million, but that's in weapons. We gave them, I
But
think,
we gave them some weapons.
yeah, we gave them 3.8 billion in cash.
Yeah, and we gave them 785 million of weapons.
Well,
What do
we
you
haven't given it to them yet.
not
They
having
they
said? But Biden is leading towards, and I'm like, well, what do you expect them to do with the weapons? They're just not going to just sit there and just, oh, look at the pretty gun. I mean, they're not going to do that. And I'm glad, I had been worried of some of the progressives not making enough noise, at least on this issue.
excuse me.
They're making some sort of noise, and um, they're doing a whole lot. I know when Biden was in Michigan, Rashida Tlaib confronted him, and of course he called her Rashid. I'm like, no, it's Rashida, Rashida. And I'm just like, oh, somebody sit him down, sit him down. Oh my goodness.
When his first reaction to the violence was to defend Israel, just on a hunch, I went to Open Secrets. Pro-Israel groups have donated over $3 million to his campaign. Make of that what you will.
Yeah, so I hope the progressives get together. I don't know how successful they'll be in blocking that because it seems like it's a done deal, but I'm just hoping against hope at this point. But I'm still trying to figure out how is the corporate media giving him credit for something he didn't do. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let me think about this again because I kept thinking it was Egypt. It was Egypt. It was Egypt, not him. What are you talking? And I'm just like, okay, maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe I just skipped by the whole thing and I was hearing what I wanted to hear.
No, it was Egypt. He was definitely on Israel's side in the beginning. There was no after Rashida Tlaib and all the progressives pretty much attacked him on the House floor with very impassioned pleas for the human beings who are being slaughtered. He kind of wavered a little. And as you said, he said he has great respect and admiration for Rashid. Doesn't even remember her name, but he has great respect and admiration.
Yeah, I
That
was
is
like,
so disrespectful.
I'm like, that's so I saw through that too. I'm like, see, some people like me don't need to be in Congress. Because if that were me, I'd be like, my name is Rashida, not Rashid. Get it right or sit down somewhere. I'd have been a whole lot more aggressive. She was not what she should have been. I'm not downing the way that she confronted him because she didn't do what the former female governor of Arizona did to Obama. She was very kind. She walked up to him. She confronted him, said what she had to say, and then she left. That's the way you do it.
Excuse me.
This one right here, I've been like, let me tell you something. You all the way wrong. You are so wrong in this. I don't know how to say it respectfully, but you're wrong. And then I would have walked away.
Yeah, his total disrespect and his almost flippancy in
It's
this
like
whole situation.
maybe it was me interpreting it that way, but it was like he was dismissing her. Like, let's sit down.
Exactly.
Just sit down. Be a good little girl.
He's being flippant about the whole situation. I'm still waiting. Now they attacked the mosque yesterday. I'm still waiting for him to make a statement about that.
I haven't even heard anything on the news about the mosque being attacked. So you're the first one.
No, that was yesterday.
No, I haven't heard about it.
Period. Yeah, I was posting about it yesterday because the people who were saying Israel wants peace, it's all Palestinians' fault. When that happened, Israel signed a ceasefire, and immediately went to their mosque and attacked them where they were trapped. Then I posted all over saying, who's to blame in this one? In this particular situation, who's to blame? Yeah, not getting any responses.
I totally missed that one because I thought, oh, the ceasefire's holding. Okay, that's great. That didn't even hold. I was like, what?
It was almost immediate. I'm like,
that's not a ceasefire because a ceasefire means no ceasefire.
When the ceasefire went through, the Palestinians all went to their mosque to celebrate, and immediately Israel moved in and attacked them.
Yeah, it's oh boy, it's just such a it's. I wish we could get to the peace agreement we had, and I never get the president right. It was either I know it wasn't Bush, senior or junior. I know it wasn't Reagan. I'm almost leaning towards Carter, but it might have been Clinton. One of those two had some sort of agreement between the two of them that they wouldn't fire. And I cannot remember who it was. I'm like, who was it? Who was president when that agreement? They met at Camp
I don't remember, but it's never held. I mean, it started in 1948, well, basically 47, but Israel was established as a country in 48. The only reason I can remember that is because it's the year I was born. They established as a country. Okay, that sounds good. Then they kind of moved to the east a tiny bit and said, well, we want a little more country. And then they wanted a little more, and then more. And as I've said for decades and decades, most of the leaders of Israel have been saying outright they want to get rid of the Palestinians. They've said they can't trust the Palestinians because Palestinians are violent people. It's ingrained in them. Now,
it's such a and I certainly don't pretend to know the answer to the conflict. I certainly don't. But I know that a ceasefire that they could keep is at least a start in my eyes. At least a start. And I don't know why. I know why the Biden administration is hesitating because they've done the same thing that the Trump administration did, and they did the same thing that the Clinton administration. I mean, they've all done pretty much the same thing. Um, well, no, I take that back. I think Obama called for a two-state solution. I think. I'm not 1,000% certain. Um, but like I said, I don't pretend to know the solution to what's going on over there. I just know that the killing needs to stop. That's Israel needs to stop bombing Palestine, to recognize their right to live, and move on. So that's my thoughts.
I'm no expert either, but it seems to me Israel should get out of Palestine, stay on the land that they claimed that was given to them as a country, and have it be two separate countries, each one able to govern themselves, live the way they choose to live.
And
How difficult.
Yeah, the summit that I was talking about, it started in 2000, and Bill Clinton was president. I kept saying, wait a minute, it was either Clinton or Carter. I knew it started with a C, so it was Bill Clinton. I was like, wait a minute, I know it.
How long did the peace agreement last?
I didn't read it. I just was like, okay, now who was president during that time? They had a summit. It was at Camp David.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It took place in July of 2000. Oh, it did not end in an agreement. Never mind then. That was an accord, not an agreement. Okay. Well, see, I learned something every day. I thought it was an agreement. Nope, it was an accord. But it's still, I know a lot of people that I know says that America should stay out of foreign business. I agree and disagree with that in some senses. I don't agree with us putting dictators in when the people of the country want something else. However, in a situation like this, you can't just have a leader you should take the side of what's right instead of just, oh, I'm just going to agree with Israel because they buy our weapons. Well, what if they didn't buy your weapons? You're not going to agree with them then. That makes no sense to me.
The other things that don't make sense to me is The entire developed world, including the US, declared when this started, declared Israel's occupation as illegal. The UN declared it as illegal. Genocide is illegal. Netanyahu is under indictment for fraud, bribery, breach of trust, and a bunch of other corruption charges. His trial again was supposed to start just when this happened. And now it's been postponed again because of the emergency. Now, how can the US support a corrupt leader, an illegal occupation, and a genocide? How do we justify supporting that?
Because we do the same thing. Think about it.
Yeah.
We stole this country was stolen from in the East Coast. It was stolen from the Native Americans, and the southern western portion was stolen from the Mexicans.
Mm-hmm.
We brought people in from a country that didn't speak this language, forced us to learn a language, then got mad because we were angry about it. I mean, we've done pretty much the same thing, so it would make sense to me. I'm like, oh, okay. Not that I'm saying it's right, but I'm like, oh, well, look at how we do. We'll say, oh, we're taking democracy to those countries. Well, really?
How many countries have we, especially in South America, have the people democratically elected a left-leaning leader, and the United States went in and helped them in a coup to get rid of that leader and put in a right-leaning one and or dictator? How many times have we done that?
A lot more than I have fingers. Well, some people don't count the thumb. I'm counting the thumb. Because we definitely have done it. And I'm like, I dare somebody to say we haven't. But I wanted to move on to our next subject, Matt Gaetz. Oh my gosh. Will he please go away? Will he please go away?
No, I'm enjoying the stories.
I'm so sick of seeing his face on TV. I'm just like, put him in jail already.
Every time a new proof comes out, it's so good for a laugh, and we need a laugh nowadays. And laughing at Gaetz, I see nothing wrong with that.
That part would be fun, but then you start thinking, oh, he had sex with underage minors. That's the disgusting part. And that's what I'm tired of hearing about. Now, apparently, one of his ex-girlfriends is now coming to testify. I'm like, just roll it up. Just give it up. Just give it up. Go to prison and just be done with it. Because I don't even think they will. I was saying this on Tracy Takes On. I don't think that when Greenberg signed his deal, they wouldn't have agreed to it if he didn't just have nothing. If he had nothing,
no. He had, I think it was 26 charges against him.
26
serious ones, and he pled guilty to 6 of them. There is no way they would drop those 20 charges unless he had good information. And it's written into a plea agreement that he must share the information they're looking for. If he doesn't, those other 20 charges will come back.
And the dummy Gaetz, not only was he stupid in having a VMO account that was public. Everybody knows if you have VMO, you can set it for private. You don't have to make your account. I'm like, oh, is he just? Did he must have thought, I'm going to get away with this.
But, and they have Greenberg was a tax collector, a tax something. They have video of Greenberg and Gaetz going into the tax office on a Sunday after hours when it was closed, going through boxes of IDs. They have video. How stupid.
And what were they doing with the IDs? That's the part that I never did understand. I'm like, what's with the IDs?
Well, if you want to hide what you're doing, maybe you're paying prostitutes, maybe you're paying for hotel rooms or plane fare. If you don't want it known that it's you use someone else's ID. Simple.
Oh, so he's out because I never when I said this about him, I'm like, okay, what does his IDs have? Now I'm getting it. Okay,
But it's on video. I mean, the man worked in that office. He didn't know there were cameras in there.
apparently not.
I mean,
Apparently,
the stupidity of all of it, every step along the way. I mean, the crimes are terrible, yes, but the stupidity of both of them is just either stupidity or like I don't know about Joel Greenberg, but I know that Gates, Daddy got him out of trouble his entire life. So maybe he, like Trump, he thinks Daddy will bail me out. He's always done it before, so I'm not worried.
that is just. I'm like, you have to be the dumbest person. Why? Why would you? First of all, don't do it. Don't sleep with underage children. That's the first problem that he crossed. Then the second level he crossed was being completely stupid, writing all this down, wiring money, so exchanging texts. I'm like, oh, he just wanted to get caught. It's got
And
to be.
and it's not just the underage girl. In this country, prostitution is still illegal.
Oh yeah, I keep
So
forgetting
he
that
broke
part.
the law. He also sex trafficking, paying for transportation, especially across state lines, for sex, even if it's with an adult woman, is illegal. He every step along the way. It's not just that he did one or two things. He has like, well, you saw Greenberg had 26 counts against him. I think from what I've read, Gates already has possibly, allegedly, 10 or 11.
They haven't charged him yet, though, right?
No,
Yeah, I was gonna say, and he and Marjorie Taylor Greene, um, they're starting that Ku Klux Klan caucus that they got going. I'm like, okay, don't tell me it's not racist when you're racist. Go away.
well, what I like is that she's a QAnon, and Q's most basic tenets are to protect children from sex trafficking. And yet she's going on a rally tour with Matt Gates.
Why won't they get her out of Congress? Just dismiss her. Just be like, okay, we're done with this.
She has threatened other, no, it wasn't just AOC, she's threatened other. One of them, one of the squad, had to move their office because
That was
to get
Corey.
away from her.
That was Representative Corey Bush.
Okay. Others had to hire extra security because of the threats. This 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 psychopath actually put an ad out with pictures of the squad and a gun in her hand.
And
What
I was like, who does that? And I don't understand, and I don't know how this works. I don't know whether it's her party that has to kick her out, or is it the whole Congress that says, okay, you got to go. I don't know how that whole process works, but
well,
they need to do something because it's going to get worse before it gets
she's
better.
threatened people's lives repeatedly and publicly. What more
Yeah,
do you have to do? That's against the law.
that's why I said I don't know how the expunging someone from Congress works. Because I part of me wants to say it's up to McCarthy, which he won't do it. But then part of me is like, well, wait a minute. Isn't Nancy Pelosi the Speaker of the House? Can she do it?
I don't know. I'll have to. See, the problem is, see, they could kick her off of committees, which they did, but she was elected by the people. So I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up. It might need a recall from the people,
No, I
which
know
isn't going to
that's one
happen.
way. That's
That's
one
not
way.
going to happen.
Yeah, she's
But
a highly Republican district, so she's not going anywhere.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that one up because, like you said, she's making threats. Didn't she say she wanted Nancy Pelosi dead?
Yeah,
Yes,
she wanted to. I think she said something about shooting her in the head.
yes, that was her. And I'm like, no, I thought it was that brown haired girl, the
Oh,
other one.
Boebert.
Yeah, her. I thought she was the one because she walked outside the Capitol with this gun. It's like I'm taking on the squad.
How can they get away with? Forget that they're Congress people. Forget everything.
Like if
In
I
this
did
country,
that,
It's against the law
yeah.
to, yeah, it's against the law to threaten people's lives.
I'm like, wait a minute. You're sitting here telling me if I said, hey, I'm gonna take a gun, I'm gonna go over to Mickey's house, and that's gonna be it. The police are probably gonna be like, what's your problem?
You will be in cuffs.
No, I would be dead. Let's just. I mean,
True. Yeah, but I don't know about that now because I've been marching and protesting for Black Lives Matter before it existed, for decades and decades. But now seems they're also targeting white people, old people, anybody who is weaker.
yeah, because they did tase like yeah, they did tase like a 76-year-old lady who had dementia.
Oh, 73. No, they broke her arm. They dislocated her shoulder. They then handcuffed her behind her back with a broken shoulder and a broken arm, left her that way in a cell for almost 6 hours without seeking medical aid. Now, I've had both my shoulders replaced and with medication, and I mean that's a pretty brutal surgery. I know what it felt like for weeks after before I recovered. I can't imagine having a broken arm and a dislocated shoulder for 6 hours with your hands behind your back.
Yeah, I'm just like, now that was horrible. But I did, back on our original subject, I did find it. And I'll just read what it says. Article 1, Section 5 of the United States Constitution provides that each House of Congress may determine the rules of proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior with a concurrence of two-thirds, expel a member.
Oh,
So they
never
would need.
get 2/3.
Yeah, let's see, there's 400 and what, 85?
35.
Yeah, 435. So they would need what, 66% to get her out. Oh, yeah, that ain't happening. Because even if every Democrat voted, they would have to get Republicans to vote her out.
They'd need 280 something, 290 something. They're not going to get that because it's so close now. There are, I forget the number of Republicans to Democrats, but it's pretty close now.
Well,
So,
that was the progressives' fault that it was so close because they had the unmitigated gall to campaign on defunding the police. I'm like, you know what?
isn't it funny that every one of those progressives, even with the DCC and Pelosi and DNC money behind their challengers, every one of those progressives won their seats back. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why. The next, not to just keep jumping subjects, but to jump to the next subject. I wanted to talk about this whole notion of, and if I hear this word, I keep saying if I hear this word one more time, I'm gonna scream. Bipartisanship. Why in the world, if you have the numbers, are you trying to negotiate with a party that has told you time and time again, we are not what is wrong with the Democratic Party? I don't understand it. I keep scratching my head like, what's wrong with you all?
My opinion, Biden and the corporate Dems don't want the policies that he's saying he wants. They don't want it. So he's not pushing to pass them. He's insisting on bipartisanship so he can blame the Republicans for not passing them when he can do it himself.
And the infrastructure bill got reduced. I forget how much the amount. It was like 1.7 trillion. Now it's down to, I
Well,
forget,
the Republicans are trying to get it down to 800 million.
800 million. What do they think that's going to do? What can you do?
Yeah, what they'll
Okay.
do, what have they done on every bill that they've negotiated on? They've knocked the good stuff out of the bill. It's things for the people. We've said, the Dems said, okay, we'll concede again. We'll take out all the stuff you don't like. They take out all the stuff the Republicans don't like. They put it up for a vote, and then the Republicans don't vote it down anyway.
Well, that's what they're doing on this January 6th thing. I mean, they're doing exactly the same thing. I'm like, why are you negotiating with campaign, get more Democrats elected, and just leave them to fight among themselves? Just
Well, what makes me mad is why did Pelosi and Biden say, okay, we will have the commission be equally Republican and Democratic?
I think it was equally Democratic and Republican because it was support
Yeah,
from each
they
side.
didn't have to. Pelosi could have said, nope, I'm going to appoint these people and these people on it and make it at least one or two more Democrats. She didn't.
Oh,
She
you mean they
caved.
conceded the five? They made it. They conceded.
The Dems conceded to making it equal. Now, considering the fact that we know many of the Republicans paid for buses. They funded buses to come to the insurrection. They made phone calls. They conducted reconnaissance tours the day before. There, there's the meeting they had at the Trump's hotel. There's so much evidence that at least a couple dozen of these Republicans were complicit. Okay, so you're going to put an equal number of the people who were complicit in this crime on the commission to investigate this crime?
Here's my other problem with the commission. I'm glad you brought it up. Okay, so what are they going to tell me that I already don't know? I already know a bunch of little bitty butt crybabies that their leader, David Koresh Trump, lost. So they went to the Capitol for some dumb reason, thinking they were going to overturn the election. They got funded by people on in Congress who gave them tours because some of them knew exactly where to hit. They knew exactly where they were going. They knew exactly what to do. What are they telling me? What's going to be so they find something and then what?
Well, then now that it's equally divided, Republicans can insist on taking a whole lot of the proof that they find out. We know this stuff, but we need solid proof.
And why not just hope? And maybe I don't know the rules of Congress. Do they need to get a commission or couldn't they just hold a hearing? Couldn't
They
they just
could have, yeah.
they could just hold a hearing and be like, okay, we're gonna just hold a hearing
Well,
and talk
they've
about
been holding the hearings. I mean, you saw, what was his name? Clyde? Andrew Clyde? Insisting, while under oath at a congressional hearing, insisting it didn't, if you really looked at it, if you didn't know it was January 6th, you would think it was just tourists staying behind the
and some of
stanchions.
you showed him hiding under the
Oh,
just hiding.
I've been posting two pictures of him. One of him welcoming his tourists, hiding behind a cop with a gun, mouth wide open, screaming in terror. And the other pictures is him and some other people barricading a door against his tourists.
Yeah, tourists. And I'm like, okay, but I don't get what the end game because I feel like it's going to be just like the 9/11 Commission. You're not telling me anything that I already don't know. It's not like you're going to punish the people who paid for them.
Exactly.
What are you going to do? Okay, you find out that some of your Republican cohorts funded these nitwits to come. So, what are you going to do with that information? You know
Hmm.
the information. Why are we wasting time on something we already know the answer to? We already know what happened.
Well, we're back to the usual weak Democrats. They have a majority in the House. They don't have to concede to anything from Republicans, and yet they do.
And that's where I don't get it. It's why the conceding. You have the numbers, even though they're slim numbers, you still have the numbers. Use them when you can because there's no guarantee. If they keep this up, they're not going to have the numbers in 2022. And then Biden's not getting anything passed. Period.
Hmm. Well,
Because
he's not getting anything passed now anyway.
well, he won't get anything near like the $1,400 that he got passed this time.
Yeah, that not one Republican
Well,
representative,
and not one.
not one Republican senator voted for. Not one.
Yeah, so I'm like, just use what you have, shove everything you want in, and it's like not only are the Democrats the party that hopes to lose, wants to lose, they have no plan to win. It's like, okay, we'll just run our little campaign and we'll just blame the parliamentarian or Joe Manchin or whomever it is that will push. And it's like you're not pushing for anything. And I guess that's my frustration with some of the progressives too, because they're conceding to that. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
let's stop, let's push, let's do something.
Yeah, and you saw what happened when the progressives pushed Biden on Israel. He at least wavered a little. Why aren't they pushing on some of these bills?
That's what I was wondering. I'm like, okay, now do what you did for Israel and do it on $15 minimum wage, UBI. Let's get some stuff started in here. But
Well, a lot of this stuff Biden can do by executive order,
he's
and
not
he won't.
going to. The
No.
student loan he could have did by executive order. He wouldn't have had to go through anybody. But now it's just federal loans. Well, some people don't get federal loans to go to college.
Hmm.
Most of us have loans from non-federal loan institutes. So it's just they aren't even doing the bare minimum anymore.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand it. I don't know what they need. Do they need a leader? I mean, they had one in Bernie, but he is. I think he's tired, understandably. They need a leader with a big mouth, an honest, strong, powerful voice, and we know who that is. But I don't understand it because I thought, all the four in the squad, I was so happy and enthusiastic for them. Backed them 100%. The ways some of them, especially AOC, has backed off scares me.
Well, that's the system, unfortunately, because if you think about it, they're there every day, every single day, getting pressured. And not that I'm making excuses for them not pushing, because I definitely think they should push. But that's a phone call. I don't know, and I'm always one. I lean more towards okay, the people in their districts need to be calling because that's who elected them. I didn't, but I think Talisha
And
said it
see,
last.
I disagree with that
Yeah,
because
everyone
you
disagrees
know
because I'm
I
like,
know I I I sent money to AOC. She's not my district.
yeah, because
I'm sending money to Nina. Does that mean I don't have the right to
yeah,
pressure her?
that's why I said it may take some phone calls because, like I said, Nina's the very first candidate that I've ever given to that did not reside in the state of Indiana because I always kept my election dollars local because it's something I personally believe in. So this is like the first time I've even went outside and said,
Well,
well,
and the thing to think about is, although they're there for their district, the laws they pass
they
represent the
affect all of us.
entire.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly. So
yeah.
I disagree with that. Yes, I'll support. Well, my local one is useless, but I will support locally when I can, and then state when I can, and then the country when I can. But I believe we all have a say to every one of them.
But
I mean, hey, we have no problem in talking about Mitch McConnell, right? He's not my rep, so who am I
yeah, we
to?
don't.
Well, who am I to criticize him, right? Works both ways.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. But it's not like they're listening though, because they're still tweeting. Are they active on the $15 wage increase? Are they active on healthcare? It's like
That's gone. That's gone. The $15 is
it's like they pulled a disappearing act and then they forgot to tell everybody else that they were gone.
yep.
And if I read one more press release or press conferences, those are good. I'm not against them. But just like they did for Israel, getting on that House floor and calling people out is what they need to be doing on some other issues. That's what I
Did
want to see.
did you see Tim Ryan on the House floor?
Tim Ryan, I have no use for. I
Did
do
you
not
no? Did you see him
know.
attack the
I'm just
Republicans?
thinking that was the poorest acting job I've ever seen.
I
I,
don't care. He ripped them a new one, and I loved listening
I'm
to it.
sitting there. Because someone sent me the clip, and I'm like, I'm not gonna listen to this guy. He literally turns my stuff. I don't know why. Well, I know why. I'm like, no, you're
If-
acting.
I can, if they do something right, I have no problem praising them, even if I can't stand them. If they do one right thing, I'm going to say, hey, you did this right. You might suck in every other area, but you did this right.
I don't think he did. I agree with what he was saying in terms of how the hypocrisy. Okay, that part, but the inflections and all that. I'm like, no, you're just doing the act. That's me. That is me. Certainly everybody else was like, oh, you gotta see this. I'm like, what?
I
Maybe
loved it. I
everybody
loved it.
else who sent it to me did too, and I'm like, okay,
All
whatever.
the Democrats should be doing that. Every one of them should do what he did. I don't care if they are acting. I don't care if if they're lousy Democrats. Every one of them should be doing that. That's their job.
That I agree with. That part I do agree with, but I'm like, sit down. Yeah, I saw it and I was like, okay, whatever. Um, I was more moved by Katie Porter bringing out her whiteboard. Now that I was like, I'm here for her whiteboard because when it comes out, I'm like, okay, somebody's about to get dropped. Who is it?
Yeah.
Who's she about to drop now?
You know what got me was that idiot that she was questioning tried to fudge every question she gave him. He tried to fudge the numbers. He would say it's this much, or I think it's this much, and she would come up, nope, it's this much, and then she'd ask him another question. He'd say, well, we did it this many times, and she'd say, nope, you did it this many. Don't they know before they go when they go before her that she's going to have the answers before she asks the questions?
Why are they summoned to go or do they volunteer to go?
I'm not sure. Some are subpoenaed. Some, I suppose, go willingly. I'm not sure.
Because if you're going willingly, you got to be stupid. Why would you go? Nobody just be like, okay, I'm gonna just go. If I heard that she was cheering something and I knew what I was about to do was like, I'm not coming. Nope. Unless you
Hmm.
subpoena me, I'm not coming. And then when you did, I'm taking the fifth. Thank you. I'll see you later.
She always has receipts.
Have you always? I'm like, the lady is the queen of receipts. She is the queen of receipts, and you're just don't show up. Don't say anything. Don't just keep your mouth shut, and it'll just go by.
I had a lawyer tell me a lot of years ago that a good lawyer never asks a question that he doesn't already know the answer to.
Exactly. And she must have
And
been an excellent attorney because I'm like, oh my goodness, she crushed that guy. I'm like, stop talking, sir. Don't say anything anymore. Just
she always does. She always does that.
yeah,
I mean,
her.
when they see that whiteboard come out, they need to be melting on the floor.
Well, you know it's gonna come out. You if you know she's on the committee, you know. Well, here comes the whiteboard. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know why they just continue to talk. He should have just said, I'm not saying anything. I'm taking my Fifth Amendment right, and that's it. Thank you. And have a nice day, and got up and walked out.
Maybe they think they're so smart, they're going to outsmart her. Maybe they think, yep, I'm going to get her. I'm going to fudge the numbers and they'll buy it. Who knows? Some of these people are so arrogant or so used to getting away with their corruption that they think they can still pass. I don't
All
know.
you have to do is watch her grill the people of Chase Bank. That's all they have to do. Go on C-SPAN, watch it. It's brilliant. I wish I could link it, but I get hit on YouTube for doing it. It is brilliant. But I wonder with that you know, what is it going to take for the progressives to speak up? I mean, we all complain about it, but what are we doing to get them to do something? If that question makes sense.
That's why I say, whether they're your representative or not, you have to keep contacting them. Keep contacting them saying, this is why we either sent you money or voted for you or both, because you said you would do this. Now we're asking you to keep your word.
Because
You have to keep it.
it seems like they're not listening. It's like are y'all hearing what we're saying?
Hmm.
I mean, they'll talk about, well, the fight's not over, but the problem is you're not putting up a fight of much. Where
Hmm.
is it at? And I wish I know some of them will probably never be on this show, but I wish I could talk to someone and be like, okay, what is it? What is it that they're telling you? Because they've got to be getting some sort of backdoor deals made, supposedly. I mean, that's why they gave up. That's why they introduced a $15 minimum wage because they wanted to do monthly checks, and so I believe that they were talked into this whole $15 minimum wage thing, which I wish. I don't know why they couldn't have had both, but oh well, that's just me talking. Um, so I don't know, you know, what they are accustomed to. I'm I don't know if they are. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of my question is. I don't know what type of backdoor deals they're making. Maybe they're just doing it all in the background, and I'm just like totally missing it.
I often wonder if it's the other side of the coin. Pelosi threatening them. I would look what they did. She, not her, Maxine did to Katie Porter. She was
Wait a minute,
tearing these.
Katie Porter's not progressive, is she?
No, but no, but she is very much to the left.
Okay,
She was tearing apart these CEOs. Why did Maxine eliminate her spot on that committee?
she can eliminate spots on the committee.
Oh yeah.
I thought only Nancy Pelosi could do that.
Well, Nancy's going to listen to all the old corporate Dems,
Oh well, yeah, that's true. But look at her
but they.
shoes that they had on, the stilettos that they had. That makes up for everything.
Oh my God. How pathetic was that? How pathetic was that picture? I have yet to see any comment made about Republican or Democratic man and his shoes. They wore stilettos. Sexist much?
Yeah, I'm like, why didn't you just talk about their hair or their makeup, what they were wearing? Come on, stop. But we're so into that as a society. That's a whole nother show in months itself. But um, I, I we both know that Nancy is petty. I mean, let's just be honest about it. She put them on crappy committees because they're progressives. She's not going to put whomever takes over Martha Fudge's seat, which I'm hoping it's Nina. Really hoping it's Nina. I want it to be Nina, but now her opponents are apparently raising money, which is kind of getting me
Well,
scared.
we have to keep an eye on that because how fast are they raising it? Because they might not be raising it from the people. It could be the DCCC that it's giving them the money. You
Yeah,
know they're not going to give the money to Nina. They're not going to back her. We know that. So if especially people are talking about Chantel Brown, if her contributions suddenly shoot up by a lot, we better pay close attention to that.
yeah, and they did because she basically, and I don't know if you saw it, but she did some kind of um, I think she's calling it rap. It was terrible, but she's calling it a rap where she basically is asking for money, and I'm like, I wonder what that's about. But let's just say that what we hope happens is Nina wins. Nina wins. She's not going to put Nina on House Ways and Means Committee. That's one of the most powerful committees
Hmm.
in basically in the whole house. She's gonna put her on some little wrinkly dink, little do nothing committee, and they'll just sit there and meet and play patty cakes all
Well,
the time.
but she will still get her chance on the House floor.
Now that's the only hope I have.
Where we have to hope she makes her voice heard.
Yeah, because we need legislation. The way it's geared up now is even if the progressives were more powerful than what they're acting like, they're on committees where they can't even introduce legislation that's going to make any type of difference because it's being blocked. Because gee, guess who's putting them on those freaky dink committees where they can't be on, I don't know, the environmental committee and propose a $15 minimum wage. That doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess you could if you kind of finagled it, but if they're not on those important committees,
Excuse me.
And we know Pelosi, she already called the squad whatever. That's how she referred to them. She literally called them whoever they are. You know, she already holds something against them, so she's not gonna put them on the core committees where we need that legislation to be passed. So yes, the House floor is our hope, but we also need legislation introduced.
Mm-hmm. And Pelosi will not allow it. Her donors won't allow it.
And that's where I'm getting at, because if you're in the squad's position, all they can do is, when it comes to the House floor, is make a mockery of things. I don't think any of them were at Biden's address, were they?
I know AOC wasn't. I don't remember if the others were. I honestly didn't pay that much attention to his address.
Well, unfortunately, I had to watch it.
Well, I watched it on TYT just because I wanted to hear the comments.
Well, I did my own video, which you can all watch on my website about it too. But she's just super. When I say someone is petty, that's not a good thing. I mean, she's like the queen of petty. And you know, if there were more progressives, which is what ultimately that's what we need. We need more progressives where she can't say, "Oh," and why is she the Speaker of the House still? I'm like, do you not all have anybody else that can take her place? Are you serious?
The sad thing is, the possibility of who would take her place is almost as bad.
Who would be second in line?
Well,
because I know Clyburn is up there, but he's like 40.
I can't remember his name. I think it starts with an M. But just as bad, just as corrupt, just as right-leaning as she is.
Yeah, so you go through all of, because she's one, whoever it is you can't think of is two. I think Clyburn is 3. Well, that's not going to get us anywhere.
Exactly. All the top ones.
They're all old. Yeah, they're all senior citizens.
They're all old. They're all old school.
Yeah, I'm not knocking. I don't want anybody to think I'm knocking senior citizens. But again, this is why we need term limits, because this does not make sense. I'm like, she's literally been in Congress my entire life.
Okay, it's Steny Hoyer. What's her name? Steny Hoyer. He's number 2. Maryland.
See, that's, I guess I paid so much attention to her, I didn't pay attention to who's the number 2 person. Well, that's,
and he's every bit as bad.
Because I pay attention to, well, of course I pay attention to my congressperson, but like I said, I just don't know, like, how. I know I want the progressives to speak up, absolutely, yes, positively, but I want some legislation, and like, how can we get legislation introduced when they're so petty in the Democratic Party. They're going to shoot it down because it
Well,
costs too much.
if the progressives speak up, if they demand the stuff on the floor, the people will hear them and start saying to their own representatives, excuse me, what's this I heard about, whatever the bill is? Why aren't you pushing for it? They need to speak up so the people know what is possible.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Yep. So that's a good way to end it. So at this point, we are at our normal break. We're gonna come back and talk about our topic of the day, and I'll see you all in the next 5 minutes. Okay, audience, we are back for the second half of the discussion. I would have loved the full house for this one because this is a little bit unusual. We're going to talk about sports and politics. Two things that some people don't think goes together, but they have quite a bit of history, and there's so many ways to take this topic. And I know I'm a sports fan, but I'm going to prerequisites. I only enjoy one sport. I don't like baseball. I don't like basketball. I don't like golf. I don't like tennis, swimming, race car. I am an NFL girl through and through and through and through. That's really the only sport that I'm accustomed to that I can talk about at length. But since we're not here to talk about the teams themselves, Mickey, I'll let you go first.
Oh, gee, thanks. Well, I am not into sports at all. I do enjoy watching the Olympics and some of the sports in there, but I'm not a sports person at all. So I had to do a lot of research. Politics and sports have been together since the beginning of time, starting with the Greeks who supported their athletes, starting with the Romans who their Olympics were funded by the government or the whoever was in charge said. It's been since the beginning of time. We look, here, Jesse Owens. People say that Hitler, when he won, Hitler snubbed him. He said no, he didn't. When he went to the box under, Hitler at least gave him a wave. He came back to the United States. He and 18 other black athletes, Jesse Owens, of course, broke records. FDR snubbed him. He had all of the white athletes come to the White House. I wrote down his quote. When asked why he invited none of the black athletes, including Jesse Owens, I don't want to seem soft on the Negro issue. This is
Yeah,
FDR.
that is FDR. The one Joe
Yep.
Biden thinks he is. Well, maybe he is.
In some ways, he is.
Yeah, in some ways I'm like,
So, yeah, in social economic issues, he's not. But racist, yes. But FDR never even acknowledged that those black athletes participated or won. He
or,
never even sent Jesse Owens a telegram. He completely acted as if he didn't exist.
and don't forget that Jesse Owens couldn't eat in a restaurant. He won all those gold medals, broke all those world records, and
Hmm.
could not eat in a restaurant.
Yep. So politics has been involved in sports since the beginning of time.
And I'm
It's
glad,
nothing different.
and I'm glad you mentioned the Olympics because that's one I usually don't watch because I still can't figure out why the Olympics have yet to be held on in an African country. They've been literally everywhere. I can't name an African country where the Olympics has ever been. They've been in Tokyo 3 times, France 3 times, England 3 times, America. Are we up to our sixth?
I don't know.
I think we've hosted it more than anyone. But with sports and politics, it's so we can think about even more recently. Orange. I'm not gonna call him Orange Face. Trump attacking Kaepernick
uh,
when he decided. And of course, he played for my favorite NFL team. when he decided to do the protest the way he did, he took that knee at the suggestion of a Marine. It was a Marine that came to him and said, hey, do this knee instead. And for some reason, Trump was successful in turning that into he's protesting against the soldiers. And I'm like, no, no, he's not protesting against the soldiers. He's protesting against the cops that are killing Black people.
Even forgetting the protests of the peaceful tourists on January 6th attacking the Capitol, even ignoring that, can you think of a more peaceful way to protest than to be quiet and just kneel? Is there a more peaceful way to protest than that?
I can think of another time when Muhammad Ali lost his title because he would not go fight in Vietnam.
He went to prison instead.
Yeah, he went to prison instead.
I didn't know, when I was doing my research, I didn't know he publicly took his gold medal from the Olympics and threw it in the river.
Yeah, he never.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Ali was definitely a trailblazer, definitely. But and I even go back, even and I wasn't around when this happened. The three track stars that lifted the Black Power fist. That's an iconic protest that was silent. And what happened to them was just unnecessarily evil. I'm like, okay, all they did was raise the Black Power fist. And you were
okay. No, actually, it was two Black athletes who did it. They were both doctors, John Carlos and Tommy Smith. And then the white man, I forgot what country he was from, who was on the podium with them, he raised his fist in support of them. And the hate that they all got. Raised a fist, and they did it. They specifically said they did it for two reasons. It was to protest the Vietnam War and to protest race relations in this country. That's it. No guns. They didn't storm the Capitol. They didn't attack people. They just raised a fist.
And they didn't say that the Jews put zappers into something to cause fires in California. I mean,
space lasers.
Space lasers. Thank you. Space lasers in California. That's widely accepted. But don't make a Black Power fist because that's too. I mean, there's so many like I said, there's so many paths down this that we could take. We could take the path of, which is where I wanted to go, teams holding cities hostages to build new stadiums that are supported by taxpayers' dollars. Are you kidding me? These guys are billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires. You can't buy a team and be poor. You have to have at least $2 billion. I think the Dallas Cowboys are worth, I want to say, 3 billion, or is it 4? I know the Dallas Cowboys are worth, like, they're the highest ranking American team, them and the Yankees.
Well, I can tell you that cash donations from owners of teams, 90% of that goes to Republicans.
Yes, that I knew too. Yes.
And if I can find my numbers. Like I said, I know nothing about sports, so I had to write this down. But the billions that MLB, NFL, and NBA combined, their revenues the year before last, we don't have the figures for last year yet, is over $30 billion.
Billion. And yet
billion.
The NFL is a non-profit organization. I'm like, okay, somebody explain that. Explain that to me again. Explain that to me again. Because I'm a football fan through and through, but I don't quite understand that. I don't quite understand that. But, if you live in New York, so you guys just built your state. I know when we built ours, our taxes, they used to be 5%, and they jumped up to 8%. And they built all the counties surrounding Marion County to help pay for it. And we couldn't figure out, okay, so the Ursays who own the Indianapolis Colts, you can't pay for it yourself. You're getting taxpayer money. That's not called welfare. But somebody who won't work uh, at McJob paying less than a living wage is somehow called lazy. Explain that to me because I don't understand.
That's why they donate so many millions to politicians. They can build their stadiums, they can have the taxpayers pay for it, and then they can make in the profits.
Because you buy a ticket, like when I went to a football game, I bought a ticket. I didn't just buy a ticket because, oh, gee, I was hungry, so I went and got something to eat. That was another $20. Then, thank goodness, I had the sense not to drive. I was like, okay, I'm not paying $50 to park. You got to pay for parking, food, the ticket. That's at least if you're getting even one of those nosebleed seats is maybe $175 you're spending. Maybe.
Oh my God.
I spent $250 because my ticket was like 175
For
no,
one
no,
ticket? One ticket for one game?
One ticket to one game, and I was way up.
What does a family of four do?
Not go to the game and watch it on TV. That's pretty much what happens.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you think about it, like you're there in New York. I know you're far away from the Yankees, but if you decide, okay, I'm gonna go see the Yankees. Well, first of all, good luck getting a ticket because that's the Yankees. But if you did, you'd be paying at least $400, maybe. That'd be like the low season. You'd be like
one ticket, one game.
One game. One ticket, one game.
I had no idea. I don't follow sports at all,
Yeah,
so
you
I
don't
had
follow
no idea. No idea.
And there's a game in Tennessee that I'm considering going to. I'm like, oh my goodness, the cheapest seat that I could get was like $213. And not to figure I have to go to Tennessee to see this team play because I live in Indianapolis. So I got to fly down to Nashville because I'm not driving. Then I got to buy a hotel that night. Then I got to get the ticket. Then I got to get something to eat. That's like a good, maybe $400 or $500 to see one game.
How long? What? 2 hours? 3 hours?
Maybe three. Maybe three.
Wow.
Maybe. So any of those commissioners that complain that they don't get support, shut up. Because you're getting so, I mean, even the worst team in the NFL, who is that? Is it the Jets? It's either the Jets or the Cincinnati Bengals. One of them, they're both terrible. Even their tickets are like hundreds of dollars.
That just blows my mind. Blows my mind.
Take the worst NFL team you could possibly find, and you're still talking about paying $100-something for a ticket. And there's no family games. There's no. But the cheapest way you can do is
do these stadiums, do they pay property tax?
I don't know if they do it in Indianapolis because I don't know who pays the property taxes on them because it's taxpayer funded. I know in the old Hoosier Dome, well, it was renamed the RCA Dome, but the old Hoosier Dome, I don't think they did because that one was taxpayer funded.
Wow.
So if you got yourself a professional football team, a professional baseball team, and a professional basketball team, your taxes are high because your tax monies are going to pay for that stadium that's going to be used maybe. Let's see, if it's a football team, you got 8 games a year. Well, no, now it's 9 now because they went to a 17 game schedule. So that's 9 games, maybe. Then maybe some artist comes in there and plays a concert. Maybe they get a soccer team in there to play sometimes. But what else is that stadium actually doing but wasting taxpayer money?
Wow.
That money could go for literally anything else. You could fund schools with it. You could, well, that's a major thing for most cities is they can't fund their public schools. And then you get charter schools that get to replace them, which will be our topic in the next couple of weeks.
Well, it's not that they can't fund the schools. They fund the schools in the white,
Property
rich
tax.
neighborhoods well. They don't fund them in inner cities.
You know, then they use in Indiana, we use the property tax to fund our schools. So if you live in a poor neighborhood, your house value is low. And so those low funds are funding, of course, low schools because they don't have the fund base to gather from. I don't know
But
what.
there's also funding from the federal government. That's not equally distributed either.
Exactly. But yet these owners are getting literally billions. I think, and I refuse to call them the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to still call them Oakland. I don't care what anybody says. The Oakland Raiders recently moved to Las Vegas because Las Vegas built them a stadium. I'm pretty sure that stadium cost $2 billion. I'm fairly certain of it.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure the one in Los Angeles is costing maybe $3 billion. What is it that you're doing with that? I mean, I love football. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, you couldn't have played in your old stadium? You can't.
So you tell me a city can spend billions building a stadium,
Billions.
taxpayer funded, and then after a few years, another city can say, "Hey, we'll build you a better one," or another state,
Well,
"We'll build you a better one," and they can leave.
That's how the old Baltimore Colts became known as the Indianapolis Colts because Baltimore would not build a stadium. So, is it John Irsay? What was his name? Yep, John Irsay said, okay. So he snuck the whole team, and I was 10 years old, so I will always remember this. I was 10 years old when this happened. They snuck the team in because we had just built what I will still call the Hoosier Dome. Well, obviously, it wasn't $1 billion, but it was in the 100 millions, and I was 10. I was 10 years old when that stadium was built. No, actually, I was 9. The Colts didn't move into it until I was 10. That's how, like I said, that's how the Baltimore Colts became known as the Indianapolis Colts. That's how the old team that was the Cleveland Browns came known as the Baltimore Ravens. That's how the old Los Angeles Rams became known as the St. Louis Rams, and then they moved back to Los Angeles. And
you do realize you're speaking a foreign language to me.
I know. I'm trying here. I'm like, it's all it's like if they don't get their way, they move to another city. It's
but
like,
even if the taxpayers fund to build a stadium for them,
they can move.
If after they can just move.
No, let me backtrack that. There's 33rd. Okay, and I'm again audience. I'm only talking about NFL because I don't know about the other sports. In the NFL, a majority of the owners have to vote for a team to move. So let's just say I own, I'm going to say it, my team, the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers want to move to, I don't know, what state doesn't have a team? New Mexico. They just want to move to New Mexico for some reason. Well, they can't just pick up and move there. A majority of the owners have to vote for them to move to that new city. But of course, they always vote for them to move to that new city because it's a good old boys club.
That was my next question. Was
Yes.
What are the chances?
I think it's only one time where a city's move was denied. And that was way back in the 80s. When I think, I want to say Dallas wanted to move, but they still wanted to be known as the Cowboys. And also, no team really plays in the city that they're named after, except for 3. The Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, the Indianapolis Colts, the Atlanta Falcons. Every other one of them, they play in some other city. They never play in a city that they're actually named after. I know, Mickey, I'm way over your head with this one, but
Totally,
trying.
totally ignorant.
But I'm
Totally ignorant.
trying to get to the taxpayer portion of them supporting these teams when this is just welfare. This is literal welfare for the rich, and no one's calling it out.
Wow. Yeah, I concede. Totally ignorant, know nothing about this, and I'm finding a lot of what you're saying shocking.
Yeah, it's really shocking. And I didn't even trench into college sports. Oh my goodness. That's even almost worse than the NFL because they're not moving. But of course, they're not paying their athletes either, which I find abhorrent because that's a whole different type of discussion. And then you have the disparity between an audience. I don't want you all to get mad at this, but I usually don't watch women play sports. That's something I try my hardest to like women's sports. I'm just like, I can't. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something in my mind, but I can't flip it. I can't flip myself and make myself like women's sports.
There's nothing wrong with that. I can't make myself like football or basketball or
Yeah, but,
baseball.
and
We all have our different likes.
I feel like as a feminist, I'm like, I should like women's sports. When I watch, I'm just like, okay, somebody shoot me. I cannot watch this anymore. I can't do it. But even the disparities of, um, smaller colleges against larger colleges, and how much stadiums or how much a college. I know you heard about the controversy between the lockers, like the training facilities that the females were getting, and
Yeah.
now they're like, okay, we're not having this. Okay,
And the pay disparity.
well, okay, this is how I feel about the pay disparity. And I'm going to say this, and I know somebody's going to say I'm not progressive. However, and and we can't talk about football in this instance because there's no women football league. There just isn't. So I got to talk about basketball. Most people are not watching women's basketball. If they're watching basketball, they're mostly watching the NBA and they're mostly watching men play the sports. So, not that I agree with the pay disparity, but if you're just basing it off of the ratings and the revenue, I can sort of kind of understand it. Oh, I know I feel bad for saying it.
Well, let me put it this way, again, being ignorant, is at least the pay commensurate with the audience they attract.
Well,
In
that
other words,
problem.
if the men, let's say the men attract 100 viewers and the women attract 10, do the women make 10% of what the men make, or do they still only make 1%?
You
Did
know
that
that
make
that
sense?
part I don't know. That part I don't know because I'm not a basketball fan. So me watching the NBA is not going to happen, and certainly me watching the WNBA that never going to happen. So I don't know. I mean, I know that the highest paid woman basketball player gets paid like, well, it probably is 1% because she gets paid like $3 million, and the highest male player gets paid like 25, 26, maybe 27 million a year. So yeah, that would be about 1%.
So we'd have to know, though, the difference in viewership.
But the
Is it
viewership is way. I mean, you have the most current NBA playoff game was like 5.6 million. I don't think the WNBA's had. I don't think they've ever hit a million. I don't think they've ever had a million viewers watch any of their games. So it's already a disparity in, well, who's watching women's basketball in the first place. So if you have that disparity, like I said, I don't agree with them getting paid less, but I'm like, well, if you're just going off the audience, it kind of makes sense because everybody's watching the men's game.
okay? I can understand that.
And that could be, my bias could be conditional. Like this is how I was conditioned to think. I'm only doing what I was conditioned to think, and I had to get outside that. But in terms of basketball, I don't like men's or women's basketball. So I'm like, oh no. I can only name one basketball player, and that's LeBron James, which you should know because Laura Ingram told him to shut up and dribble.
Shut up and dribble. Yep, I knew that one.
Now you should know that when athletes take social stands, they're often criticized.
According to the right wing, athletes, actors, singers, entertainers lose the right to freedom of speech when they become famous.
Except for, you notice Kanye, they didn't say that when he was campaigning for Trump. Where was
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny?
And you know, because I have several friends on Facebook who are Trump supporters. I'm like, well, shouldn't Kanye shut up and have a rap or something? Like, what happened? Like, he can speak for Trump, but nobody else can speak for the opposite. So, okay, wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
Or how, you know, these athletes that are pro-Trump supporters, and there are some that are, how they talked about how they were treated in the locker rooms. Because the majority of NFL players and the majority of NBA players are black. That's just the way it is. So if you're going into that environment, like Tom Brady, okay, now Tom Brady, Mickey, is a player that plays for Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wait a minute, isn't he a football player?
Yes.
Wait a minute. The guy who leads the team, I forget what it's called. Quarterback?
He's a quarterback, yes.
Hey!
You got one. Well, he's a quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He used to be with the New England Patriots, where he won 6 Super Bowls. He just recently won his 7th. Close friend of Donald Trump. I mean, yes, and Brady has never denied being close friends with Trump. Never has denied it. How he gets away with that in the locker room, I don't know, but apparently they say he keeps that out of the locker room and he does pretty good with it because the black players on the team are like, well, that's who he supports. I'm like, okay, huh? What? Yeah.
Well, let's see. On this test so far, 99% wrong and 1% right.
Yeah, you gotta get there. I'm just saying, because I know a lot of people don't think about the two, but they are so intertwined. And you think about not just the economic impact of like I was bleeding down towards owners holding the cities hostages for new stadiums, the social stance. I mean, I was really upset with the NFL when they came out and said, well, maybe Kaepernick was right. No, really? Really, NFL? Really, you gonna do that? Really,
what? 3 years? 3 years to get there?
He hasn't played football in 3 years, and he's probably never going to play again because what old white owner? Because that's the majority of the owners in the NFL are going to draft it, or are going to sign him because their base is conservatives. Conservative rich people are only people who can afford to buy a ticket. Not me. I save up for one game and I'm doing pretty good. It's a whole world out there. And then you talk about the way parents condition their children to be professional athletes. That's a whole road that I didn't even want to touch because that's so many layers on it.
Many years ago, I'm going to say 45, maybe a little more. I lived in a small town. I was married. I did something none of them had ever seen before. I bought a hot dog wagon. I got permission to go to the Little League games with it. The fights I used to get into with parents who were yelling, swearing, cursing at the kids. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. And these are little kids. They start them young.
Exactly. And then they wonder, well, why is this child so violent? Or why is this child cursed? Gee, I wonder why. I don't know why. You think it's because you do the same thing, maybe? I mean, you have parents, and I know you didn't watch the NFL draft. But I already know that. But you had parents like all jumping up because they knew, oh, well, this paid off. How many parents have tried to get their children to get to that level so that they can be taken care of? I mean, the cost of playing a sport. Most children in high school had to do some type of fundraising to get uniforms to play sports because the cost of athletic wear is extremely expensive depending on the sport you play. But you have parents literally, you can tell them like, okay, that parent is going to be living off this child for the rest of their life. And they got to take them, they got to take care of themselves, their parent, their cousins, they two extra kids. I mean, I'm like, okay, look, can we stop this? Can we stop pimping our children? And that's literally what it is, pimping our children. Can we stop this?
How how and or when did it become big business to play the sports the way they do now?
Ooh, that had to be because even when I was a kid in the 80s, it wasn't like it is now. When I was in the 80s, that was like the Bird Johnson. You do know who Larry Bird is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that was a Larry Bird, Magic Johnson,
You're
Michael
back
Jordan
you're
era.
back in my time, and if you go before '83, I was married and my ex was a sports fan, so I know a little bit there.
Yeah, it was even before then. I would say probably, if I'm guessing, I would say around the 60s because blacks weren't integrated into basketball until like the late 50s. And of course, 1942 when Jackie Robinson was it
Yeah.
42 when Jackie Robinson was integrated. So baseball was integrated before basketball. It was
Well, there was, yeah, but before that, there was a Negro League because they were
there
not
was
allowed to play with whites.
there was there was a Negro League, absolutely, and that's one of the great tragedies of our. That's what really led to the sports for profit model. And I don't want to seem like I'm being anti-white because I'm not. But once black people got into those sports, that's when you saw the marketing and the money behind sports really increasing. Because before that, most sports were like for the very wealthy. Poor children weren't playing it. Poor children weren't playing, not in the professional sense of
Yeah.
like traveling around. But once the black athlete got introduced, it was like, oh, we can really make some money off of this. And I'm not even going to talk about college. Oh my goodness, they're almost worse than the professional sports. They are way worse. One again because they don't pay their athletes, and they have these people called boosters who are like donors to the school's athletic department. So basically, they decide what coach gets hired, what coach is. That's a whole different trail.
And do they charge for college football games to watch
Girl,
them?
yes. Yes. Oh yeah. It's cheaper than the NFL. Yes, it's way cheaper. I would say, well, wait a minute, it depends on the type of team you're talking about. If you're talking about a tier team one like Alabama, University of Alabama, they won the championship of college football. If you're going to see them, you're not paying under $100. You might as well just wrap that up and call it a day. You're not. But if you're watching Colgate play some little piddly school, you may pay $10, $12. It
So
depends on
that
the level of
so they're
team.
they're taking then the big ones, the big ones might take in tens of thousands of dollars a game.
Tens of thousands? No, 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 no. Millions. The University of Notre Dame has its own channel. It has,
But they don't pay the athletes.
no, they do not pay the athletes. And they have
Wow.
fought for years and years against paying the athletes. Because their argument is, and not that I agree with this argument, but they're like, okay, we're known as a football school. So now we're going to have to start paying our softball players and our swimmers. And I'm like, yes, you would have to start paying them. And you could use the football revenue to do it. after all, I think Notre Dame's contract was NBC because NBC shows a lot of Notre Dame. So let me take a step back. So you got a couple of big universities, and again, I'm only talking about football because basketball is its own whole world with AAAU. I'm not even going to get into that. But in football, you have Notre Dame, Alabama, Michigan, Florida State, Texas A&M, USC, UCLA. Those are your tier 1 schools. None of those schools you're going to see again for less than $100 for a ticket. All of those schools I just named have 50 and 60 and 70 and 80 and 90 and $100 million television contracts. Every single last one of them I just named. None of their contracts are just $10 million. None of them. And the bigger the school you are, the more you're going to pay. So I'll give you a good example. So Alabama is in a conference called the Southern Eastern Conference, which we call the SEC. They used to broadcast all their games on CBS. All their games came on CBS. CBS paid like $60 million for maybe 10 years. Guess how much ESPN is now paying the same SEC conference for the same 10-year contract? Just take a good guess.
I couldn't begin.
Just throw out a number, any number.
100 million?
Girl, you so low, it don't even make no difference. You are so low. I believe, if I'm right, no one look this up. I believe it's in the 200s.
I just had a strange thought, knowing nothing about sports. If they refuse, that they're not paying their athletes.
Nope.
Why couldn't they pay their athletes a percentage of what the athletes draw? Doesn't have to be big. Let's say if you're a football team and you draw, let's just say 1,000 tickets are sold.
Yeah.
Okay, you get maybe 5 or 10% of that goes to the players. So if you also have a softball team, they get the same percentage of what they draw. Sounds fair to me.
But again, that's all about the money because, I was so wrong. ESPN will pay the SEC $300 million each year. Each year. So if you take $300 million and you times it by 10, guess what number you're going to get? They're paying $300 million annually. That's all because the SEC has 2 brackets. They got their East and they got their South. And they make one big conference. $300 million, but they can't pay athletes. Are you serious?
It's a good bracket.
It really is because if you think about it, if you're Joe Quincy Public and you want to go to the NFL or NBA or whatever league, you have to go to, well, at least in the NFL, you have to go to college because that's where the scouts go. The scouts go to the college games. Now, NBA is totally different. They go overseas, AAU, and all that stuff that I know nothing about. But $300 million, we were both low. I was like, oh, it's over 10 years. I didn't realize it was annually.
And they can't pay the athletes.
And they have jersey sales because people buy the jerseys. They just ruled, I think 2 years ago, that now the athletes can get money off of that. So if they put, how the athletes wear a jersey with their last name on it. If the university sells that, they do have to pay them. But now,
I remember quite a while ago hearing something about college players are not allowed to use their names to make money.
Right. But now other colleges are getting slick. They're not putting their names on the jerseys anymore. So I'm like, really, just pay them. Because you wonder if college football went on strike, personally, I'd be devastated. I would just be sitting here like, y'all got to play. Y'all got to play. I mean, I wouldn't blame them. I'd be in solidarity with them, but I would still be sad. Because when college football Saturday come back, these shows gonna be short. I'm telling you right now. I'm not even gonna sit here and try to lie. I'm like, oh well. Soon as August roll around, watch what I'm gonna be doing. I'm telling you right now what I'm doing. But if they even went on strike, like we're not playing, I don't. I think things would change.
I think it's mind-boggling that if you are as famous as you get as a college player, that you're not even allowed to use your name to make money. How can they?
And yet, and that's where that gets kind of confusing because if you play tennis, you can use your own name for money. If you play a lesser popular sport like hockey or swimming or track, you could be a professional track person and still keep your track scholarship. There's no contradiction in that. It's
Mm,
only the two major sports where they do that at football and basketball. You cannot have an NBA contract and play college basketball. You cannot do it. You cannot have an NFL contract and play in college sports. That's not allowed. All the other sports can do that. You could, I think Tiger Woods played for the UCLA golf team. But Tiger Woods was winning the Masters. I
mm.
don't think he was on scholarship, but he was still allowed to go play. He was still allowed to play golf, earn money, and he didn't have to give up anything to do that. So, yes, there is a lot of politics in sports that people never pay attention to.
And we haven't even gotten into the Olympics.
Again, I'm still wondering what African country has ever hosted the Olympics. I cannot think of one. I'm sitting here like, okay, and it's got to be something. It's got to be at least one. And I'm sitting here really thinking. I know Mexico's hosted it. I know Canada, United States, England, Tokyo, Russia, because that's the year we protested and didn't go. Oh, you're looking up because I was going to look it up. I'm like, I cannot. I'm sitting here like, I know it's got to be at least one. I think the Olympics has been in Australia. I'm pretty sure it's been in Greece.
Oh, here it is. Next year, 2022, Summer Youth Olympics will be held in Dakar. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's the Youth Olympics. I'm talking about the actual ones.
Oh, this is the first and only.
Yep. So the only African country to ever host the Olympics is for the one that doesn't count.
Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Why has Africa never hosted the Olympic Games? Mainly because no African city has ever put in a bid to host them. It's
Oh,
a very complicated and expensive project.
you know what? I didn't even think about that because it does cost money to. Yeah, you do that. Well, see, audience, that's how I got corrected. That is a good point I never even thought of because to put in a bid, I think you have to put money in to even place a bid.
Many different countries have hosted Olympic Games, but that's the stuff leading up to the Olympics, not the Olympics
Not the
themselves.
Olympics itself. Yep, and then you got to build the stadiums where all the events are going to be at, and then and that's more taxpayer money going down the drain. Because
Millions and millions.
I think Los Angeles is going to be hosting it in 2024. That's like their third time. I'm like, how many times the Olympics going to be in Los Angeles? Because I know it was there in '84. I know Chicago had put in a bid, but the mayor at the time was such an idiot, he messed it up. But that's when Rush Limbaugh, he cheered because Obama did the pitch, and we was like, oh, that's the best one. They should just put him up there. And Chicago didn't get it, and Rush Limbaugh cheered. I'm like, boy, sit down. But anyway, it just amazes me. I'm like, I don't see how people miss this. People just totally miss the political implications, especially on the collegiate level. I'm like, you have people rendering a service, they're not getting paid for it because they play a major sport.
And many of them, especially in football, are going to wind up with brain damage for life. and injuries that could permanently disable them to some extent through life. They're taking that chance.
They all sports are a chance, but yes, I do agree with you. And the majority of collegiate athletes never make it to the NFL.
Mm.
I think it's like what less than it's like half of 1%. So the chances of any male making it to the NFL are so minusculely small. It's like they're going to be doing other things after football. They're going to be entering into the public sector, not playing football. And now they're so injured they can't hold jobs because you didn't put any type of, oh, I think they do have to have insurance now. They do have to now put insurance on them. So that part's good. But even that is like, it's just, like I said, there's so many things to talk about. Cities being held hostage, college athletes not being paid, the sexism that exists between men's and women's sports, the racial component. I mean, you have so many racial things that have happened when an athlete chooses to speak up, i.e., shut up and dribble, or he can't speak because he's an athlete. Well, why can't he? He's an American. Even if he's saying something I don't like. Even when Drew Brees said, you know what, Trump's doing good. Okay, I laughed at the statement, but I'm not going to take away his right to say it. I'm not going to say, oh, he shouldn't be able to play because he's sick. No, that's what he thinks. Of course, he had to retire. Well, no, I'm not going to get into that. That's why he retired, because his players refused to protect him. But that's a whole different discussion you said you're not going to have. So I am going to say that I appreciate you, Mickey, being here with me, especially talking about a topic that you said you didn't know much about, and you all listening to me rant on about why football.
Didn't know much. Didn't know much.
Yes.
How about nothing?
Well, I didn't want to say nothing because that would seem rude.
It's allowed.
But it is a topic I would love to explore in some different components because, again, it's a topic, you know, as athletes are more vocal than they've ever been. I think it's really something important that we need to keep visiting. But this portion of the Progressive Queens is over, so I would invite everyone to like, share, and subscribe. And I know, well, Mickey, if you want to stay around, I'm going to keep talking because this is